Yeah, so we've got Jack here from JC Guitars. I put in the title of this that we were talking about CNCing, but having just spoken to you, Jack, before we came on, you also do milling and laser printing and all this stuff that kind of all connects somehow.
It's quite a tech-heavy approach to something which is quite a sort of hands-on artisan.
And I know that's something we've been keen to talk about because when we've had people on before, we've sort of alluded to using CNC, but no one's really uses it, or if they use it, it's just for small amounts of things. So it's great to have someone that uses it. But basically, did you start guitar building with CNCs, or did you ever make using hand tools and power tools?
Yeah, I have made sort of lots of like semi-hollow guitars, which like a 335 style, which is very, very much a makey type thing. It's like making a box, as you may, lots of bending and things like that. But my background is, it's always been practical. I did like an apprenticeship in joinery and cabinet making, and did lots of different things, and ended up basically working in theatre, making sort of large-scale props and scenery for primarily like West End theatre.
Amazing.
And they had a CNC machine there, and it just like blew my mind, that you could take a drawing and cut something out exactly the same shape to, and it's such an efficient way of working, especially not just time-wise, but with materials. You can be far more efficient with your materials, and in guitar making, your materials are pretty expensive. So it's a no-brainer to just try and minimize any way, and just even if you keep it, I use all my scraps as well. I was just saying earlier, I find a use for them somehow, and I can 9 times out of 10 I can machine them on the router or the laser or something like that, and make use of the little nice bits of timber you feel ashamed of throwing away or burning. So for me, no-brainer being working the way I work, but everyone's different and that's their own way of doing things. But
of course. So look, today I want to get into with you looking at some of your guitars, finding out about how you use your CNC. So we had some questions. People want to know about the software you use and the machines you use. I know you told me you made your own machine. Is that right?
Yes, so very much a homemade Frankenstein thing, but it's quite solid. It's just made out of like box section steel, kind of welded together.
Fantastic.
All the bits you can just buy. There's quite a few reputable online dealers. We can all buy the bits. And if you're really geeky, which I am a little bit geeky, not ashamed to say, it's quite fun if you get into write a bit of code for it to get to do things, putting the switches in, and that way you get a better understanding of how these things work. It's not so scary once you've kind of made it from the ground up. It's no different to a printer that prints out a piece of paper, really.
So that's where I'd nerd out, because I've always loved languages.
This is it. I put it in the limit switch so you can find home, and I found, putting in like a tool measuring sensor, you wire it into the board and you write a bit of code to tell it what to do to come down and retract again. So all these little things, you go, oh, it's actually not so scary. And in the process, you could be a bit more accurate and added all these little bits and pieces to it. And yeah, it's not very big, but it's big enough for making guitars. So that's specifically what it's for.
That's all you need.
That's it. And space is limited in my workshop.
Speaking of that, I saw something, I think it was yesterday, and it was just a quick glimpse. So I don't know if it was just, a weird camera angle or what, but it looked like, at least put the idea in my head, that they had a 3D print, a CNC bed that was on a wall.
You can, there are some machines that can do that.
I think that's just a different type of motor you need, and as long as you're cutting something that's not going to fall out, it's fine.
Yeah, but holding the material down is one of the toughest parts of CNC, as I'd say. That's one of the key things you need to learn how to hold things in place. I'm not using a vac bed, but for some of the things I do, I've shown earlier, that I've got into 3D printing little vac jigs. So I've got like it works off compressed air, like a Venturi thing. It's actually from an old picking robot. You plug your airline into it from your compressor, and it creates a massive vacuum. And I've been printing these little plastic things, little plastic pods, specifically for whatever task I'm doing, really. That's the way I get round of like a double-sided machining thing, yeah.
So look, I was thinking we might start by looking at your guitars, but maybe we should carry on with the conversation, get back to your guitars in a minute, about the process of CNCing. I know you had some things you prepared to show us. Make these clear. Out of interest, so you've made your own CNC machine, and I know you said by coding certain bits of it, it makes it less intimidating, you understand it more, and you've got a bit more control. But for someone that's never done anything like that before, the sort of CNC machines that you can buy as budget ones, do you know about them? Are they any good?
So the one you can get, so when I was looking for myself, the ones that are belt driven, like with pulleys and belts, for woodwork, or anything tougher than wood, aluminium or metals, they're not going to be rigid enough, or you'll end up like missing steps, or if something almost slips. So what you want is a direct drive, like a ball screw or something like that. Basically, you want a big rigid. The more rigid your machine is, the better it's going to be. So anything with little pulleys and the like, it's just going to cause you more heartache.
Right, yeah, because it's just like the equivalent of when we always talk about when you buy cheap tools, and it doesn't necessarily give you an understanding of what an expensive version of that tool does, because it's just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, the big ones, they will work, and you'll probably end up doing another 10 passes or something to get your desired sort of finish. But sometimes you don't want to do that. You just want to cut it out and get on with life.
So if we go to the beginning of it all, how do you start with your drawings?
So, the beginning, I think, what's a good thing to show you? I mean, if I'm doing anything particularly creative, I could probably show you. Can I show you some things? So
yes, please. Yeah.
Shall I show you guitar and go from there? Let's have a look.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, well, it's not just the intimidation; it's the cost. But I'm like big unit here. I do find it a bit intimidating to try and learn new programming and things. Even though I can do other things, it shouldn't be that complicated. It's just like the time and the thought of something new always puts me off a bit.
Yeah, I love learning something new. It's especially if it's something you can use and something tangible, that sort of thing. So there's one of my guitars. So for me, I model everything out. It's all there. It's all worked out to a point. So you can sort of see. I even put in all the machine heads and things like that. So it looks right. I put in all the holes for the controls, all the hardware I'm using, things like that. But like a fretboard, maybe open that. It's quite interesting to show, I've got different inlays and things like this. And if I'm looking how I've done that, is you can actually I do sketches and things like this, and I work it out like this. So things are in the middle, and you can be quite geometric and maths orientated, adding rules in and things like this. So you see there's very little in the way of measurements. I'm just saying it's got to be in the middle of that line and all that sort of thing. And from here you can actually export it out. You can take your DXF and things like that. But if you're doing something a bit more fluid or something like that. So for example, I had to do, somebody wanted a DNA tree, a tree DNA thing. I'm sure there's a word for it, I don't know. It's really nice. He basically gave me a piece of artwork to base it on. See if I can find it here. So
wow.
Can you sort of see that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way he's done that, so if I open that sketch, So you can sort of see it upright. I don't know what's the best way of showing it. So you can actually bring in a picture, just like you can literally grab a picture off the internet or wherever you like, and take it in, scale it up, and essentially draw over the top of it. That's what I've done now. In my mind, I know I'm basing it around. I'll be using like a 1mm cutter, 1mm diameter. So I'm going to do an online draw. You can see you'd be quite loose with the representation of it all. And you just sort of work your way into it, really. Roots and the branches. And
it looks similar, for example, the way you're showing me that, as to using vector graphics in something like Illustrator.
Exactly. Yeah, vectors. The only difference is this is a 3D version of it. That's adding an extra dimension.
So I'm sure for a lot of people there is a bit of a crossover. There might be programs you've used before that are similar, because I've used Illustrator and I can see a connection.
Yeah. So I used to use AutoCAD, or programs of the same sort of thing, and you can totally build a guitar from 2D software. Totally, it's like a one step up from a paper drawing. That's what. But the good thing about it is, if it works in here, and I'll know it'll work in when I cut it out and put it together.
How much of the toolpath is auto-generated, and how much do you have to be hands-on?
So from here, I would. I use another bit of software, which I'll do my toolpathing in. I think eventually I'll probably do it all in the same program here, SolidWorks.
Okay, so kind of like a 3D printer slicer.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So I'll probably show you some of that as well. So I can maybe show you the neck. I
mean, I should have thought of that.
So you sort of see that's my neck for this particular guitar. It's got these different carves on the front and the back. Truss rod carve there on the face and the inlay, that sort of thing. I could probably show you how we do that on a different program.
And things like what you were just showing us, and we can see the wood finish.
Yeah.
Are those sort of textures you can drop in that are already in the program, or do you have to design?
I've got a big library of different woods. I'm a little bit anal when it comes to having the correct woods on it. But it helps me. So if I'm doing a design for you, if you've got a custom commission, then I will do a full 3D render of what it's going to look like, essentially. So you can have all your inlays on there, all your chosen woods, and you can see what's going on. So this is a different program. We turn the layers off. So I've basically taken that model and plopped it into here, and I can also take some vectors as well, so you can keep it in a 2D world. So you can see the outside shape, you can see the inlay, you can see the truss rod, and there's also another area which I'm going to carve out with the tools and things like that. So basically, and in here, which is good, is that you can simulate it and make sure everything works.
And then, so what you're doing there is simulating it working the path with the size bit that you're going to use.
Yeah, so it will be, if you go to here, go away. Yeah, you can choose all your different bits. You can select from a library if you've got different things you want to use, different materials. So if you're using aluminium, you'd have a completely different feed speeds and head speeds, and lots of different parameters that you would actually use differently for different cutters from different materials, and have a library.
I didn't even think about all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
back to what Scott said, is some of that automated, so you can say, I want to use this material, and it will suggest what to pick.
Yeah, I mean, I keep it quite simple. So I know, if I'm doing something like rich light, I'll probably take it a bit easier on the cutters. I don't know if you use that. It's like really hard, high pressure laminate, which is quite good for fretboards. and it is incredibly tough to machine. So I take it a bit easier than I would a bit of wood, really. That sort of thing.
I'm just typing in the chat, but just to say, if anyone's got questions in the chat or comments, just let us know. We can put them towards Jack. And also later on, if anyone's watching this in the future, put things in the comments. I've also got a link in the description to where you can find Jack if you want to contact him directly.
Yeah, please do. I mean, for me, doing it this way, it's not like a money grab. I'm quite happy to help anyone out, really. So,
and actually, that's something that you do as well. If a guitar maker wants something CNC'd, they can talk to you and you can do it for them.
Yeah,
so that's a sort of service you offer.
Yeah, so lots of
buying a CNC just for one thing.
Yeah, any sort of inlays or specific scale lengths or multi-scale things, it can be a bit of a daunting thing. And it can be quite easy on a CNC, especially if you draw it, you show it to someone, go, yeah, like that, and it's quite quick after that to make it for someone, really. I'm sure you could speak to any CNC company, but they wouldn't have an idea where to start with a part of a guitar, probably. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a niche thing, guitar building, as you probably know. So yeah, I'm quite more than happy to help people out.
How long would it take you to just model one guitar?
It depends. If it's a brand new thing, like start from scratch, it can take as long as it wants. But if I want to modify something I've done now, it can be very quick. If I want to turn it into a 7-string or change the scale length,
yeah,
like a couple of hours or something like that. Not even that.
It's the modeling that's intimidating to me. I don't.
That's the fun bit. It's the fun bit. I like, it's like virtual woodwork.
Yeah.
You can do it at night, and no one gets upset.
Learning to actually do it, and do it clean, and then it actually come out right, in real world.
Yeah, it takes a bit of practice, just like any skill, just like real woodwork. It takes a bit of time and a bit of patience. But if you want to, then persevere with it, because
I assume there exists a place that, like, unless it's the same place, like I know there's something called Thingiverse for 3D printing. Is there a place for, like, you can get files for already made CNC things? Maybe buy, or they're open source?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I think yes, there probably is, but I like to
you're making them from scratch. I was just thinking, if you were going to get into it and you bought your machine, then maybe you want to have something already made. I've definitely seen people selling CNC guitar files that match specific guitars. So you can buy them to do as your test things. And what you're saying is you could just make alterations to an already existing design.
It depends on how good that original drawing is. I'm not saying, it's all in the drawing. That's where all your time goes into getting that right. And then after that, it's just a matter of dealing with some shapes effectively. But if you can figure it all out in the first place,
See, not having any CAD experience, when I got the 3D printer, I got Fusion 360.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how to use it. And so far, the only thing I've really managed to make is the outline to my little inlay, which I don't even remember how I made it. It wasn't too difficult, but I was definitely a fish out of water.
A good way. So if you're going to try and remodel one of your guitars, a good way of, can I show you, is just taking a photo with like a ruler, so you can scale it up. Like, say, bringing a drawing in.
We'll just trace it.
Yeah, effectively. Where it is.
Yeah, I guess like you did with the inlay with the tree.
Yes, exactly that. So, if I...
And I know on Illustrator there's a function, which I assume you have there, where you can take a line drawing, and it just converts it into vectors.
Yeah, you just need to make sure it's the right scale. And that's, sometimes I take a photo of something and I literally plonk a ruler in, just so I can scale it to a ruler. And that's if it's not too skewed or anything like that, you can get a pretty accurate shape. Let's see if I can find you.
While you're looking at that, I just want to go on a quick tangent. Some people are talking about the cost of CNCing. Obviously, you can get the software and use the software and design stuff, and then send it to someone like you to get it made. But am I right that you are based in a worker space, which is like a shared space where you use each other's equipment, or is it just a shared?
It is. So the place where I'm rented it's called Space to Make, and they have a dedicated wood shop there for anyone who wants to come in, and literally you can rent a desk for a day, or you can rent a space like I do for as long as you want. And you've got full access to all sort of machinery there. So they've got thickness planers, huge dimension saw, band saws and cross cuts and routers and sanders, all sorts of things you want from a pro sort of workshop really, which you don't necessarily have time, to invest in. So if you can't afford all these things, it's kind of all there to use. There's some things I've bought myself, but I don't want to go out and buy a big cast iron 3-phase thicknesser, because where we're going to put it. Well,
Exactly.
You've got all the nice heavy duty equipment there which you can use, and then plus there's all sorts of dedicated studios there. So there's all sorts of people. There's jewelry makers and candlestick makers. Literally there is. Upholsterers and who else? Yeah, all sorts of things going on there. Yeah, it's great.
I know last week we had Mark from Hilditch Guitars, and he was talking about his background working at a place that had really expensive equipment, and then moving to the cheaper, smaller stuff that he could afford in a workshop.
Yeah.
And the difference in how they work and the quality of it. And we never really talk about making spaces. I don't know if they're big in America. I know there's quite a few around London where I used to live, and there's one in Brighton. And just before the lockdowns, I was thinking of using them, and it sort of became something that was in the distant memory now. But it's so good to be able to access something that you wouldn't normally, or if you want to try something out before you buy it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky that it's really close to my house as well. So
I've thought for a long time, if I had a giant sack of money that I didn't know what to do with, I would start one of those.
But it's popular as well. Yeah. I mean,
think about all the goofy, crafty things I've gotten into, from wood to printing to all kinds of stuff. It would be great to just be able to support that.
That's it. Also, it's just nice to be part of a little community. I know you're doing it with this podcast, but it's nice
to make some different things accessible to people, because I think there are a lot of things that you could really get into if you had some exposure, but not knowing anything about the equipment or how to get started. That would be someplace like that would be really helpful.
Yeah, what's take on otherwise, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the chat talking about things. I know Corey's just mentioned a men's shed in Australia, but there's actually a charity in this country called Men's Sheds that do a similar thing, have that access for space, but often it's people coming just to access the space to meet other people, and they don't necessarily make a lot.
And drink tea, I think that's the main criteria, isn't it?
Drink tea, yeah. In the Luthier's lunch break thing that I put together every few weeks, we had someone from Afterlife Guitars talking about the workspace he works in, which seems to be connected to a food bank, and it's a space where people come mainly as an access to, they're making things, but as an access for sort of respite or sharing or having somewhere to be, which I think is great, using making as somewhere to be.
I still make other things other than guitars. Just making stuff in general.
Yeah, I want to try and keep an order here, Jack. I want to talk about the things you make that aren't guitars as well later on. So we'll get onto your guitars and your other things, because that's also interesting. Rob's just mentioned his small CNC. I had no idea you could get a tiny CNC that cheaply. And Rob, I think if I'm right, Rob said he was using it mainly for inlays for his fretboards.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it for, like I say, other people as well, just making headstock veneers. for a guy who makes acoustic guitars, really, really lovely acoustic guitars. And he kept making headstock veneers out of with ebony because it's so forgiving. You know, you can route it was like a handwritten R with a little circle, and it's so forgiving in ebony because you can just fill it with ebony dust and a bit of glue and it disappears. But he was doing it in some really light woods and some walnuts. He's like, I can't get away with my shaky routing, so I just did a load for him. He's probably got enough to see through for a lifetime now. But you know,
right.
You know, you can still keep your handmade beautiful guitar, but have a little bit of on bits of it. You don't have to do the whole thing. It'd be a tiny amount if that's how you want to work. It's not, even if you utilize it somehow, it's can help give you that nice yeah.
And some of the things that you could do with the CNC would drive you into, you know, needing, now I need a laser cutter. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's quite good at the makerspace. They've got a nice laser cutter there. So
nice.
I use that quite a lot.
Do I remember, Scott, that you were using your 3D printer to make your bone inlays?
Yeah, just the outline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the one thing I've managed to model. And I don't even know how I did it. I don't even remember. Yeah, that was fun. And it's like a 5-minute print or 10 minutes, something like that. So yeah, I've printed a lot of different colors, so I've got them laying around and just fill it with epoxy. But yeah.
So Jack, what's the next stage? You've got your drawings all ready to go, and this is a silly question, but is it the same sort of interface, or if you get a CNC machine, it's going to use the same language, same files that you send across whatever CNC machine you're using?
No, so I mean, my router is a specific. You get something called a post. So when I output, maybe I can show you again, so you can sort of see. It's much easier to just point and show, isn't it? Can you see that? Am I showing?
Yeah, I'll just put it on screen. Hold on.
So when you come to save things out, so down here is my file format. So I'm using, is that right? No, I'm actually using something else. But you see all these different things here. These are different posts for different machines. So you're saying, does it output the same code for each machine? No, every machine is specific or different. But you can get some simpler ones like G code or a tab code, you know, like this, and you send it out. That'll be a file type that your router understands.
Right. I'm assuming then the programs, you can just load the right type into it, so it knows what to. Put the right place in.
So on my router again, there's another program. It's called Mac 3, which is the controller software on there, and there's loads of information about that online, which is quite good. If you want to know any more about it, you can search quite simply in Google and find out any problem that anyone's ever had. It's quite user friendly in that respect. But basically, you make your model, you toolpath it, and then you send it to your router in hopefully the right code format, and you should be good to go.
See, I would worry because a lot of the problems I've run into with the 3D printer, it was really hard to find any information that, I mean, because you've got really weird, you know, symptoms that are happening, and sometimes they don't quite manifest exactly the way other people have seen it, and some of those take a lot of time to figure out. Yeah,
it's like this Mac 3 program. It's been around for donkey's years. Like I say, it's a huge user group that's been using it. So I have more trouble printing out a bit of paper than I do cutting something on the CNC. If there's any, I use SolidWorks for the main modeling. I've been using that for many years, so I know what I'm doing there. This other program here for the toolpathing, I've used that for quite a few years, but there's another program called Vectric, which is very similar. And that's got a huge user base for that. So I think if you went into CNC routing, it's been around longer than 3D printing, I guess.
Yeah.
Might You might be able to find the answers a bit easier on the internet for sure. Or ask me. You know.
Well, maybe the issues you run into with that are not quite so weird and complicated.
Sometimes there's a little tick box somewhere that you're not ticking, you know, on a drop down menu buried deep within a program. Something like that normally.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to deal with like finding the right temperature for this material and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error with it, like anything. But is there anything else I can show you? What else can I show you? I was going to show you. Do you want to see the process for like taking a photo and using it for a guitar shape?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that we can have a check out of some of your guitars and talk about that process.
So this is a guitar I did for someone. What's quite good about this program is you can roll it right back to the beginning and see where I started. So there is a photo there. Let's see if we can get the transparency better. Come back. But basically, there is. So he gave me a guitar body to start with, and that's literally my dining room table at home. So I measured that point there with a ruler, and then scaled the picture behind, and then drew over the top of it. It's that magical. Okay. So I know it's exactly the same shape as his body. You can sort of basically see it against the gingham tablecloth. So that gives me the correct shape and the right size. I know it's on the center line. It's that correct shape.
I mean, I do something really similar when I put a guitar. So when I do lots of paint jobs for people, I'll get the guitar, I'll literally do what you've done, take a photo of it, and then on Photoshop, I'll paint and draw onto the guitar there, and then I end up printing out at life-size little stencils and rulers and guides for me to transfer it across.
Well, that's it. You know, you're still a creative. You know, you don't have to get it exactly. I mean, this is another one of the guitars. Halfway through the build, he says, "Oh, I want to put these tusk F holes in." We was going to do them as an inlay. At that point, I'd already finished it, but we came back and added it in later earlier on in the drawing. So, but literally, I took that picture off his website.
Yeah, brilliant.
You could just draw over it, and there you go. It's quite a simple. I mean, it's the telly style, as you can see, but a couple of photos, one measurement, and you've got yourself an exact replica of someone's guitar that they want you to make. That's kind of.
So something was talking about in a previous. We must have been talking about CNC in a previous episode, and Dan, I think it's Dinsey, I can't remember how it's pronounced, is his tag on YouTube. He was saying he's been using CAD and CNC, and he was talking about the, what's the word? I've forgotten the word. The tolerances that he has for his different cuts and things. Like, for example, we spoke just off air before, but for his neck pocket, the difference between the neck cut and the inlay, my brain has totally switched off.
That's right. When I do
neck pocket and the neck heel to make sure that they fit perfectly. And you said something that surprised me, that you have the tolerances so the neck's actually bigger.
No, yeah. So so when I do an inlay on my headstock, and I allow 0.1 millimeters around the outside, just so it just glides in. If you did it exactly the same, it would be too tight. So I just give it a little bit. So you just squeeze in a little bit of glue, and it's exactly how you want it to be. And for my neck pockets, things like that, I do them too tight. I do them 0.2 of a millimeter too tight, just so that when there's any cleanup of the neck, I can take out any witness marks, or give it a bit of a sanding, because I don't want it just like a rough cut finish. I want to be able to sand it to whatever grade I need to go to. So I make that joint too tight, and then I can finish it, and then once I've finished it, like sanded and ready to pop in, it should just fit nicely. But that sort of measurement's taken a little bit of trial and error. I used to bang on and then clean it up, and then it's. I'm not saying it's loose. It's just not that perfect fit that you really want. So making things a little bit too tight or making them a little bit loose. It's not a massive amount in CNC world, 0.1 of a millimeter, but it makes a massive difference when you actually come to physically push things together. That's what I aim for anyway. Feel free to play around.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got what's right for you, like you said, I guess everyone will, through their experimenting, will find what's right for them. I'm sure some people, because when you're talking about sanding it to make it fit, but it's just 0.2 of a millimeter difference. I've never really considered how much you're taking off when you're sanding or when I'm sanding. I feel like I'm quite aggressive to start with, so I must be taking millimeters off. Really.
Yeah. No, I mean, also when you put a bit of finish back on it afterwards, so when you put your spraying or you do an oil finish, it's going to get bigger again. So you take off and you put it back on again. So yeah, swings and roundabouts, I think, is the.
Yeah, exactly.
I've thought some about that, but I just have no way to actually see how much you've taken off or put back on.
I could re-show you. I mean, I'll show you the model anyway. It's
on that note, we've got Rob's just said he's got to go and carry on with his sanding, but he'll be listening. And Big Unit's just said that he's doing 15 coats of nitro. I forget how many coats I put on the things. It's days of spraying, letting things set, spray, and you're right, it does add that thickness. And
there is a thickness to or anything. So you can just sort of see what's made it like. So that, if I go back to there a second, I think you'll see. I've got rid of the fretboard. This is my neck blank as such. Sort of see that line there. If I make it sort of invisible, you can actually see that line there is my neck like rebate as such. So you can see I've actually modelled it in being ever so slightly too big. It's tight where it matters in the length, on the scale length, but I just squeezed it just because I know I'll be taking it in and off. Yeah. So yeah, I even model in the. I don't think I modelled the difference there. I'll just do that. I just change that in the toolpath inside. I'll just offset it by an amount and plop it in. Plop it in. That's a very technical term, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack, have you got a screen with some of your guitars on? Otherwise, I've got your Instagram I could click on and we can look at some there.
Good. Let's do another screen. That one. Oh, I need to sign in.
Well, hide your screen. Can't work out from the sounds of your typing what your password is. Password 123. Classic.
No, I'll do it quick enough. Here we go. That's it. Right. So pictures. I mean, everyone like this one. I'll scroll down to the bottom so you'll see it. This one's a real favourite of the shows. It's a 7-string guitar, which I'm basically keeping the same vibe, but I'm just trying out different things to do. So this one's very similar to my 6-string guitar, Neo, but it's 7-string, different scale length, and yeah, kind of like my gnarly woods. That's kind of what I'm really really like.
So is this like a model that you have?
Yeah.
And then you can customize it, right? And I couldn't see in that first photo because it almost camouflaged how well the knobs that you've made fit as well.
Yeah, so the knobs, they're all made out of the offcuts as well. It's a good picture of the knobs. So with the same wood on the top as the pickup.
Awesome.
So
are you winding your own pickups there?
No, that's one of the things I haven't got into yet. I sort of made a pickup winder actually. I CNC'd one out obviously. I made a pickup winder in lockdown, but that's as far as I got. That's the one thing I should probably get into. Maybe I should do that next.
So have you just laid that on top of the bobbin that's already there? Yes.
So yeah, these are. I think that's like a type of cork actually. That's my dog. Yeah, so it's they're just stuck on top. Come here.
Cool.
They're just stuck on top.
And you mentioned earlier when we weren't on camera that you mill your own bridges as well.
Yeah, so you can see that actually there. That is one of my bridges that I've made. So I wonder if there's any pictures here you can sort of see it. So this was quite good. Little video of it. So basically there it's milled. And you can see I've designed a 3D printing jig to drill the holes. So sort of saying earlier, it has been machined out. That was stock of aluminium.
So it's done on the same CNC machine?
Yeah.
Different bits?
Same one, just different feeds and speeds. I've got that to a point where I don't use any cutting fluid. The head speed and the feed speed, I've got it so it's still cold to the touch after machining. So
wow.
What really kills router bits is heat, friction. Yeah. So yeah. I spent ages trying to get that right. I mean, I still play around with it now because I kind of like the machining mark still on it. I'm a bit like that. There's the printed jig, so you can drill through these holes to get it's a 3-degree angle. It's actually a compound angle, so it's actually quite a hard thing to do. I was going to make a 3D printed jig that goes on the router, and then by the point I've made something to do, it was actually easier just to put it in a vise and give you the correct holes in the right place, and it's quite a nice thing. It goes really well. That's kind of how I do that.
That would be awesome. The multi-scale bridges are stupid expensive.
Yeah, so that's not very expensive. But the benefit of that is I can do whatever multi-scale I want.
Yeah.
I can change it to suit. That's what I do. So if you want it to be particularly a certain different length, but you want it to be the perpendicular fret is like between the 8th and 9th generally, what I do. But if you want it in a different place, it's going to make the bridge a different shape. So doing it this way for me means you get the same look and you get the same bridge. And it's quite really easy, quite a simple way of making something really. So,
and have you bought those saddles in? Were they?
So they're standard. They're brass saddles, just solid ones. I like big solid lumps of brass. That's what I quite like. So that's the only thing you buy in, and the rest you can make it to whatever shape you want. It's once you've got your idea of how you're going to do it, it's quite simple to change it for any combination of.
There's a question here. Do you sell bridges?
Possibly.
I'm assuming if someone wants something specific, whatever it is, they can talk to you and you can work out something you can do.
There's a price, a price for anything, I haven't done yet, but at the moment, they're just for these guitars. I mean, you can get a free one with every guitar. That's yeah.
It's a silly question maybe, but is it are you using the same router bits you'd use in a router, like or are they slightly different? And for the metal, is it like a milling bit or something?
So they are like solid tungsten bits. So not tipped ones like you would get in your hand router, just because they're stronger basically.
Right.
And they hold their edge better. Generally, what I use for my carving, I use like a 12mm ball nose, so it's got a round on the bottom, and it does lots of it steps over like 1/2 mil each time, and you eventually get that carve on it. Any intricate carving I do with a 6mm ball nose, and the rest is either a 6mm straight cut, or 6mm up cut, or 6mm down cut. For the inlays, I do like a 1mm bit and a 3mm bit. And for the fret slots is a 0.6 or a 0.8mm bit. But I hate them because I have to buy them in packs of 10. Yeah.
I was going to ask how much money you spend on bits.
Well, like I said, I try and keep it a small selection of what I use. But like the ones for cutting the fret slots, I've given up on 0.6 because I've actually found 0.8 it just works for me. Because I use quite a big fret wire, so tang is a little bit bigger anyway. But you'll buy them in packs of 10. And what happens is you normally get one bit that lasts, do like 5 or 6 fretboards, and you break it with the spanner as you take it off, and then you just go through the other 9 just trying to finish the job off or something. Yeah. They're a bit hit and miss.
When something does go wrong, how hard is it to pause and restart from where you are? Because I know with a 3D printer, if something goes wrong, I mean, it's screwed. You got to start all over.
Yeah, so it can be quite easy if you're there to catch it.
Yeah.
So on my router, it's got like you can see a line. It'll give you a number of where you can trace it back to where the bit broke, for example.
Nice.
So like line 436. You make a little note of it, and you could go away for a week, come back.
You can set it to that.
Put in, and then measure your tool bit, find the correct line of code, and start from there. And you can,
nice
in that respect.
I would hope so, because 3D printer, you're out a little bit of filament, scrape it off, and start over, and you're just out of time. But something like this, you had a nice, expensive piece of material there.
They spent ages laminating up and making sure the grain's correct, and really boring.
I guess it's the same though as drilling something wrong.
Yeah,
sitting with your sander or something. Yeah, you can make mistakes anywhere if you don't know how to use it, and presumably if you make mistakes, you can learn how to fix it.
That's the real key, isn't it? Learning how to get over your mistakes. That's what makes a master craftsman and a beginner is how well you can get over your mistakes.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. It's fine. It's just trying to eliminate them if I can, but it does happen.
Well, it's overcoming those mistakes that's one of the allures for me of just getting into guitar building. From the beginning, it was there's something magical in that process of finding the mistakes, figuring out how to make it better.
And the other thing you alluded to was using your scraps to make other things.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a bit of a hoarder, a bit of a collector of the tiny little scraps. And it's got to a point where I've had to do something about it. So I may, you're the same, right? Yeah.
I feel your pain. I have boxes filled with crap. I've thought about, advertising around for knife makers and pin makers to come sift through my stuff, because I can't toss them out. I can't burn them. This is good stuff.
Yeah. So my little gig, my side hustle, right? I can show you some of them if you like. So I've been making these plectrum pots and plectrums out of my offcuts. Really good. I'm showing that. So these are the little plots. So it's about sort of handheld sort of size, you know. Get a few plectrums in there, but yeah. Keep a nice lid and a little pot on the bottom. And I've been selling these on Etsy. Again, made in CNC, of course, naturally. Because it's quite an awkward shape if you try and make that by hand.
Yeah.
So I've been selling them on Etsy. Along with some, I've just got into, this is my new little thing, the plectrums. I was sort of saying earlier about 3D printing back jigs for them. Where is one? Right down the bottom, there we go. So it's a little double-sided machine. So that fixture is actually printed.
Yeah.
And then once you've done the flip, you flip it over and machine the other side. And there was quite a few plectrums flying across the workshop until I got it right. But yeah, so yeah, scraps. I try and sell them if I can. Keep them, make something nice, and it mostly pays for my workshop where I am. So
that's brilliant, isn't it?
So
what we just saw, the machine, you 3D printed it, screwed it down,
yeah.
Then it had a compressor or something adding the vacuum, and that's what holds the picks in place while it's.
Yeah. So yeah, little pinchery. I don't know if there's a picture of that. I'm not sure what picture of that. But yes, it's quite simple, like aluminium box with various chambers in it, and you can pick them up off eBay. They're like old packing machines or like injection molding machines. They have like these vacuum fixtures on them, and they just sling them out for a new one. And I picked it up for like 20 quid.
Wow.
There's nothing to it, you know. I did try. I've got a little vacuum pump for, like a vacuum bag system. I tried that first of all, see if I could hold them onto that. And there was not enough vacuum, so I tried, like a Henry Hoover or like a shop vac. 3D printed a fixture of that to fit onto. Tried to do that, burnt that out completely. And then this was like the third attempt of trying to hold them down, because it's quite. You can see it's quite a big cutter that's cutting them. So there's quite a bit of force on such a tiny thing. Yeah. Prove a bit of a challenge, but get there.
It's a very clever workaround to do it. Is there a particular part of all this process that you enjoy the most?
I think, I don't know, like the plectrums idea was a little idea that I had, and I just had to do it. I had to figure out how to make it work. I didn't really, not envisaging like this is how I'm going to make my millions. It's not like I gave myself this problem, and it really bugged me that I couldn't fix it. So yeah, the thing I like doing is giving myself a problem and trying to fix it. I guess.
Yeah.
Finding a way of.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it. I give myself these problems. I mean, I could just go out and buy a kit guitar and sit at home and be happy, but
where would the fun be in that?
So I've given myself the problem of trying to make guitars. I've given myself the problem of trying to, earn a living out of the guitars. And
well, like I said, I mean that's part of the fun is trying to figure out how to make something happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just find it so interesting that you're interested in making all these jigs and these devices that hold it all in place. For me, it's great seeing people's guitars in my Instagram feed and stuff, but I just as much enjoy seeing their jigs or their ways of working and their methods. And it's really, especially with the CNC, which is quite new or quite different for me, it's interesting to see that happening. Quite
alien for a lot of guitar builders, I think. Like in any other industry, like, yeah, of course you do, But I think it gets quite a bit of hate as well, I think, in the guitar world. People see it as a form of cheating. I'm sort of here to defend it. I mean, is it cheating? I mean,
I think I had that attitude for about 5 seconds, and then you watch somebody do something amazing that would be very difficult to do by hand, and you can see the benefit of at least some of these things, being machined.
But so I still rent out jigs for, like, someone says they need like a like a neck humbucker putting on their guitar. I'll just machine one out of a bit of scrap MDF or something and tape it onto the guitar and mount it up by hand. And not like I have to use it for everything, but it's a tool like everything else.
Yeah.
It's a really useful tool if you've got the time and patience to make it work for you. So it's more than pay for itself. Pay for itself pretty early on, actually. So,
well, it sounds like with that interesting sort of side hustle of the pots and the picks, that sounds like a great extra thing to do, and not wasting wood, using reclaimed wood. I think that's such a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, but also what I'm intrigued by is, like, when you had that aluminium bridge and you 3D printed the thing to allow you to drill your holes at a 3-degree angle.
Yeah.
That sort of precision, making a tool or jig like that specifically for what you need, using a 3D printer so cheaply is such an interesting thing that I'd never really thought about, how you could just print something. You mentioned earlier as well, before we were on live, about having a humbucker shaped block that you drop in your humbucker routes that's got a channel to allow you to drill the connecting holes in with.
I mean 3D printers are really cheap, and I do recommend people use it for jigs and things like that. Otherwise, you're not printing little things. Oh, that's interesting. But trying to make it to have something useful out of it. I found drilling jigs works really well. It's so cheap, and if you break it, you just half an hour later print out another one. You can have like a drawer if you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I think about, I'm a programmer, and once you get into things, you start to see how you could apply it to other things, and wind up building a lot of things that are specifically to help you use your craft. So yeah, I can see getting into this, and then suddenly you start seeing the use for jigs and all kinds of crazy stuff.
I definitely recommend it. It's been this year I've been using it for these different drill jigs and things like that, and it's been a bit of an eye opener. Go, oh, I could do that, or I could do this, and I recommend it definitely. And like I say, they're so cheap as well. I mean, you can pick one up for a couple £100, and you. I mean, I did print a guitar. Did you see that at the London Guitar Show? I actually printed one.
I didn't see that.
You're not the cardboard.
Oh, I feel terrible. You were on the stand next to me. I didn't notice
that. So I got fed up of it. Always, I don't know, go to these guitar shows and you always get one person who always says just says one comment, and it's one that really bugs you. Like the last guitar show was like, oh, your guitars are really heavy. I mean, they're not heavy. No one's ever complained. They're quite light, nicely balanced. So I thought, for this show, I'm just going to make the lightest guitar I can possibly. So I decided to 3D print it and then skin it in carbon fiber. And it was quite fun, really, 3D printing a guitar. Really, I mean, it was a bit of a test, bit of a. I thought it might just be feel a bit like a toy, or just not be very nice, but it's definitely a guitar. It definitely works, and I think it used about half a kilo of filament, probably about a tenner.
Amazing, yeah. I'm quite intrigued because I've seen people 3D printing guitars on YouTube, and I follow someone on Instagram who's sort of doing lots of iterations of the design at the moment. And I just like the idea that not only could you buy a 3D printed guitar, but you could just get the files and print it at home.
Yeah.
Because I think that's clearly part of the way the future's going to be, just printing off what you want at home when 3D print is a bit more ubiquitous.
Well, so you might be on Mars, where there's no trees.
Yeah, so exactly. I'm going to CNC my rocket.
But yeah, that was quite fun. So I try and use lots of, like I say, tech heavy, but I don't really turn my nose up at different materials. I I love wood, and I love all the different ways these different grains, different species. I also love like these recycled materials, like using this rich light or paper stone, things like that, which is recycled paper and resin. So the printer, the filament I use is all plant-based. So,
right.
So it's not plastic. I mean, it's plastic, but I think it's based on a soybean. So it's pretty eco, really, to a point.
Does that make it a vegan guitar?
I think it might make it slightly vegan. Yeah.
Mick's asked, how long did the guitar take to print?
So I did it in probably like 10. I did it in sections, basically. I didn't do it in one. So I glued the section together, and some bits were solid prints, and the rest of it was very sort of hollow, so like a 10% infill, something like that. I think most of it I did overnight as well, actually. So the print, so you could put the print on, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and peel it off the bed. Probably took about 20 hours, like that.
Wow.
I still machined the neck. I don't know if there's any pictures up. Look at the pictures. I haven't got any pictures of it.
That's something we didn't ask, because whenever I see CNC on YouTube, well, not whenever, a lot of the time it's sped up.
Yeah.
So how long would a sort of body take to CNC out?
This is my 3D printed guitar.
Oh, I did see that. I didn't realise it's 3D printed.
Yeah, so I skinned it in carbon fibre. It's got a nice wooden neck, but with rich light. There's lots of recycled materials, and it's a guitar.
I've got to say, this is a problem I think that exists at guitar shows. People go and look at a guitar. They're used to looking in a guitar shop and looking at guitars and things. But when you come to a bespoke builder, you don't realise all the hidden things in it, the choices of materials, the fact that there's lots of recycled elements in it, or the fact that that one was 3D printed. It's kind of all of that extra thing, which is something you could buy into. When you're buying that guitar, you're not just buying the guitar, you're buying all the decisions that were made to make that guitar, which are less interesting, I think, on a factory-built guitar.
Yeah, I think
that's missed when you're just looking. You need to talk to someone or read about it, and that's a hard thing at a guitar show because people just walk past.
Yeah, well, people just see a product, I think, and it's I think that you're buying someone's experience and skills of making something. I mean, I did that. I didn't do it as a joke, though, 3D printed guitar. I just did it as a bit of an experiment, and it's super light. It really is like an acoustic.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was just an experiment. I've seen people do it. Can I do something better? It's quite a nice guitar. It's better than I thought it'd be, actually. I think that was the surprise I came up with.
I think the surprise is it also looks like a guitar. It doesn't look like a 3D printed thing. You know what I mean? It's not plastic with lines on it.
Yeah, that's it. I tried to hide it. That's why I covered it in carbon to make it really hard, actually. But
so sorry, I interrupted you I interrupted my own question with another question. But how long does a CNC body take? Like just an average body take to cut out?
So it'll be like a double-sided machine. So one of my bodies, from wood on the machine to take it off, it's probably about an hour, to be honest.
Yes, incredible.
Half an hour either side.
Wow.
I shouldn't say that.
Design, work in the drawing.
Many days of toilet. Selling myself short. It's about an hour, 2 hours at most.
Yeah, once everything's set up.
The best thing about it really is that you can actually do something else while it's doing that. So you can. It's kind of like my employee, that doesn't need paying. So it's like slave labor. Robot slave labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
But yeah, you can do something else while it's doing that. So you can be cleaning up the neck or, gluing up something or So that's, well, some people might be drinking a beer. It's really selling it, aren't it?
That's one of the things I really like about it. You started off and, before you leave the shop and come back in the morning to a, finished product.
Yeah, I don't think I'll leave mine on overnight. I'm not sure I'm that confident with it. Sometimes it does, spit out a dummy sometimes. So I do have to check it. But yeah, the print I'll leave on overnight.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
This is a bit boring, but when I sort out insurance for my workshop to make sure everything's covered in case a disaster happens, they ask about certain equipment. And if I had a laser cutter, that would add to the cost of the insurance. And they specify not leaving things on overnight, obviously.
I don't recommend it. I mean, yeah, laser cutter does actually just make fire. I mean, it's
exactly.
That's essentially what it does.
Yeah. I would think that'd be a little easier to get to because there's not so much of a 3D aspect to the laser cutter. At least in my mind, I don't. But then again, I know nothing about it. So
laser cutting's really good for etching. So if you wanted, I've been wanting to do that on a fretboard actually. Is do a laser etch fretboard because you can get really fine detail. So earlier I was showing bringing in a picture and drawing over the top of it. You could probably vectorize a picture quite nicely, even like you say in Illustrator, you could take a vectorized image and put that into a laser cutter and get really fine etching, which you could, you could fill with some sort of epoxy, or you could do something else. But yeah, you could probably take a real image and put it somewhere.
Yeah.
So just to step back and sort of have a quick recap. If someone wanted to get into CNCing, what is there like a free program that they can use, or is there a best program for a starter to use for all the designing elements?
Well, you were mentioned earlier about Fusion 360. I think that's quite a good program, possibly because it does a lot. You can model in there. You can have your tool pathing done in there as well. I think it's like massively powerful, but I think it's probably quite a steep learning curve when you first start out.
Definitely.
But I think it's all in there as a package. It's probably quite a good way of starting. But then saying that, I mean, you don't have to do modeling. You don't have to model things in 3D if you don't want to. You can start out just do a 2D drawing because most CAM software does recognize vectors, as we were saying. So just follow lines. So you can do a 2D way. You just give yourself an outside shape. But if you want to do any intricate carvings, then you'll have to have some sort of software to give you that 3D shape.
I guess I guess you could think of it as well like a tool to do the outline, like you might do on a bandsaw, and then you cut into it yourself with all the sanding to get the shape.
Yeah, I mean it's just people use routers and router jigs. I mean it's the same thing.
Yeah. And then what would you suggest is that you mentioned earlier that maybe if you're getting a CNC, it's good to avoid belt CNCs. But they might take longer. Shallow passes.
I would say get the best that your budget allows. Kind of why I made my own. I did that because I kind of wanted to, but you could probably even go out and buy, if you've got the room and you've got like a workshop that is got 3-phase power, you could probably go out and get a production machine with vac bed and tool changes and things like that. You probably get them secondhand for quite decent money, to be honest. But I don't have a setup like that. Probably spent about the same sort of money you'd probably get a secondhand production machine in total.
I'd have to figure out where to put one.
Yeah.
Someday, I definitely want to do that, but space is an issue.
Yeah. The space is an issue, but you also need like a big concrete floor or something to put it. All of this.
I guess the thing about it is, unless I'm wrong, it's not something you just put on your desktop and then hide away afterwards, because it's quite high as well as the actual size of the bed. So it needs to be left out, really.
Yeah, not really. I mean, you can get small desktop ones if you want to get one and you just want to do like inlays for like your headstock or your fretboards, then you can get away with a small desktop machine. You know, for doing little intricate engravings, and that'll be perfect for that sort of thing. And do the rest however you want, you know, with your hand tools. And but if you just want to spice things up, I mean, that's probably where I'd definitely like fretboards is definitely where you want a bit of accuracy.
Yeah, that seems sensible. I think for me, I don't have the space for something big. I'd love to try and use one. I'm interested in doing more interesting fret work. At the moment, the way I do it isn't necessarily the best. And that might be a big step up for me to have a small one that I can do fretboards on.
But yeah, I think, you know, if you're doing like multi-scale things and you haven't got because, you know, you use a saw and a jig. But if you're doing very specific scale lengths that you want to, that your jig doesn't have, then it's
yeah, exactly. But also the inlays, that's what I'm keen on as well. So
I'll just I'll do it. There you go.
Yeah. But I feel like that might be a way of me learning the process as well.
Of course, yeah.
But you're definitely there. I mentioned on a previous one of these live streams about the guy that I asked you about, Jack. He came to me and asked, could I think the first stage was, could I customize a guitar for him? Yeah. And then it was, could I build one for him? And then it was, if he sent me the files, could I CNC it? Which is when I got in contact with you. And then he was like, how much will this cost? And I told him, and he said, could I just stick a vinyl sheet on top of his guitar with the picture on it that he wants? Because that's sort of the budget he had. And then the conversation disappeared.
Yeah, you should just told him to close his eyes and just imagine what it would look like. That'd be the option.
It's funny how many people are on that level. You know, half of the people that ask me about, you know, having a guitar built, they're, you know, my grandson, he's like 8, and, you know, didn't go to Guitar Center. Don't.
Yeah, well, kids do. I've done some sort of free setups for kids. I don't mind setting up a kid's guitar for nothing. I think that's a good way of giving back.
But you know, a custom build out of, you know, $150 lumber for a kid.
Yeah, that's a very different.
Yeah,
I'm not sure my pockets are that deep. Yeah,
well, you get a lot of requests like that for people that don't play, and I'm like, yeah. It would be a waste. and then, you know, you tell them how much it actually would be, and of course they go away.
Yes, yeah. Just to forget about Jack for a moment, we've got a question for Scott. How long does it usually take you to build a guitar with your attention to detail? And where does your design inspiration come from?
Design inspiration, I'm not sure. Many builds ago, I actually logged my time, and it was about 120 hours. Great guitar build off 21, I think. I logged hours again. It's still on my marker board, and it was about 90 hours. But a lot of design, well, not necessarily design inspiration, but a lot of inspiration comes from looking at an actual piece of wood and thinking, I need to do something with this, you know. But
am I right as well? The shape that you have, like for the one for this Great Guitar Build Off, is one that you've sort of had variations of for a while, that ergonomic look. Yeah,
well, that was, I forget which GGBO it was. I was just specifically I had specifically set out to try to find the most ergonomic design, and basically came up with the Strandberg. Nice. Before I knew that Strandberg was a thing. Yeah. So I was looking specifically for function, more than aesthetic, and I've gotten where I really like the way it looks, but I know There's a huge number of people that I don't think like the aesthetic.
I love how a strumpet looks actually. So yeah. I think people have some very set ideas of how something should look, and it can't deviate from that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. How stupid guitar people are. They're just not open to new ideas.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a Stratocaster.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them. I mean, Fender have made enough of them to last 10 lifetimes.
Yep. It lasts forever.
The other big manufacturer.
I hope we're all still here. We'll just cut out for a second. I hope it's still live.
We are.
Great. And another question for Big Kahuna about kiddos playing smaller guitars. I don't know what your thoughts are on smaller guitars, because I've had people ask that before.
A long time ago, when my kid was still maybe 9 or 10, he in his school had access to a guitar and was actually playing a little bit. It was when he first really genuinely started getting interested. But that full scale was a little big for him, and I made a short scale little thing. I think it was like a 22-inch scale length. So I have done one, but I do know the shorter you get your scale length, it's a little harder to keep it. It has more intonation problems.
Mm-hmm.
Those things.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments coming in about that. I know when I learned, I started at, I think it was 9 or 10, and that was just on a normal size classical guitar, and it was fine. I've got a friend whose kid's learning, and he's 8, and he's learning on a standard size Strat, 25.5-inch, and you see videos online of young kids playing way better than I can.
3-year-olds playing like Eddie Van Halen, yeah.
So I don't necessarily think a smaller scale is essential, but it would make it easier.
Yeah, I mean, if you get some playing, and that's the main point, isn't it? To get them to want to pick it up and play. So if it does that, then regardless of how big it is, inspired to play.
It's quite common in the UK now. Here we go. Someone else started classical when they were 6. It's quite common in the UK now in classrooms to learn to play at primary school. So under 11s play ukulele. I'm not saying that's how you start, but I have a baritone ukulele, and I think that's quite a fun way into learning, because it's only 4 strings. You can play chords on it, you can play riffs on it, and it is tuned, or you can tune it like the top 4 strings of a guitar. So, but I would just personally just go in with a normal guitar. I think it depends how young and how small the person is.
Yep. So, can you CNC a kid? I guess is the next question.
Oh, wait. I've got someone asking me about the baritone ukulele dimensions. Right. So listen, we've got we're going to end in a minute, but Jack, I put in the description for this video a link to your Instagram and a link to your website, which I assume also links onto your shop, your Etsy, etc.
Yeah, that's right.
But I noticed on your Instagram you are doing more videos at the moment, and obviously we're on YouTube. Are you thinking of doing more for YouTube, or is that just not something you do now?
I've got a YouTube channel. It's got 3 subscribers.
Right. I'm going to dig that up and add it to the description as soon as we finish.
I actually saw that, and I wasn't sure if I found the right channel.
It's obviously very new. I want to try and do some more video stuff. Maybe next year. That's kind of
because I've definitely found the little reels and things you're putting up on YouTube, on Instagram, really interesting. And again, for me, it's because I'm seeing things being made. I love it.
Yeah, I'm planning to do more of making stuff. A lot of people have told me that, actually. So some close friends have told me.
It's just a rabbit hole you can disappear down. You've now got 4 subscribers. A rabbit hole you can disappear down of just editing and learning a new thing. I guess, I spent ages watching YouTube videos about editing. I could just watch YouTube videos about CNCing as my way. And maybe it's you. Maybe I'll start next year when you're...
I'm the inspiration.
I can't edit that yet. I'll edit it in a minute.
I mean, yeah, watching the CNC is a little bit like, when there's like a fire, like an open fire, you sort of sit and stare at it. It's a bit like that. I don't know how many years I've been using the CNC. I still stare at it, watch it go round and round. Go, oh.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I've seen quite a few, videos of people, CNCing different things. And sometimes it can be really fun to watch, and sometimes it gets, kind of tedious.
Yes.
There's somebody this year that's got like real time, like 3-hour, cut. And it's just, oh my God, nobody's going to sit here and watch this. But some time lapse and, some change of angles, and it can be really, kind of ASMR type of fun watching.
That's what I aim for. I think some time lapse and some cinematic panning.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, then it does get more fascinating, and you do get kind of drawn into the idea.
Maybe you could set it on fire as well, so you get the fire and the... Man, I can see the YouTube title now. Man CNCs wood whilst it's burning. That's not quite good enough, is it?
One of the senior players did manage to set the CNC on fire quite a few times, actually. Because they have like a vacuum bed, so a huge drawer of you'd have like 2 sacrificial sheets, and it would still draw air through like 18mm, 36mm of MDF.
Wow!
It was I think it was like a 4mm down cut, doing a hole, and it just sort of started this tiny little ember, and the vac bed just sort of sucked it through, and underneath it just sort of spread.
Wow!
Yeah. Didn't destroy the machine, but it was quite impressive how quickly it goes. Yeah.
Okay, so don't do it overnight. I got it.
The funny thing, there was like a camera above it, like a sort of CCTV camera, and it had like a nighttime setting and like a heat setting, like infrared. And they're watching it back, and you can actually see the camera switching to infrared because there was like a heat source underneath it. Yeah, could have been an expensive. Mistake, that one.
Yeah, I've got a little camera.
Doing it overnight, my insurance wouldn't have covered it.
I've got a little camera watching my my 3D printer, so if I'm away, I can pop it up and see what's happening.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Scared everyone, haven't I? Yeah.
Great. Well, look, if everyone goes gives Jack a follow. Scott, have you got your video coming up soon? The end of your Great Guitar Build-Off. I'll keep it secret, but you've been sharing some rough takes.
You got different pieces for that final video that got to be put together. There's the intro, there's an outro, and the sound demo, and then cutting together footage. My big thing right now is cutting together all the footage for a full build and trying to keep it under like 10 minutes. And getting that sound demo recorded. I still have a little bit of work to do, but hopefully within the next week or two, I can finally piece it together because we're getting kind of down to the wire now. It's already been for a month, but video.
When's the end? When's the
end of this month?
End of this month.
Entries need to be completed, and I think December 1st voting starts. Yep.
Not long then.
Yeah, I gotta do some work.
So our next few episodes here, I'm just waiting. I think Arran sent a message. I haven't looked yet. But in December we're going to do the Scott, Arran, and myself looking over some of the entries. We can't look at everything. Well, I mean, we might look at everything privately, but we might not have time to talk about everything on the stream. So that's going to be probably our last episode in December. But next week we've got Gordon from Faisal Valkan Guitars, who's entering the Great Guitar Build-Off, and I'm loving watching his things on Instagram at the moment. Then we've got Curtis from Goth Rider Creations. Then we've got Mark Gutierrez, who's the one of the invitationals. And then I think we're going to do this, us looking at the Great Guitar Build-Off, and then a break for Christmas. But next year, we've definitely got, at the beginning of it, Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups wants to come on, which should be exciting. And I made a note during this. I'm going to contact someone that runs a guitar show, see if we can talk about the logistics of guitar shows and what people want to see in them. I think that might be an interesting, different topic.
That could be.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be, but we're just talking rubbish, and it'll be fine.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thanks everyone, and see you next week. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Ciao.